Hi guys, well after the release of AMD's RX 580 today we're going to be having a look at the PowerColor Red Devil RX 580 Golden Sample. Now the 580 uses what we classify as second generation Polaris architecture, and so this is a refinement of the current technology rather than anything revolutionary, and so this isn't the Vega that everyone is waiting for. The Golden Sample represents the very best of what PowerColor has to offer. This card has a cherry-picked GPU and has an overclock applied to the GPU. And rather than a usual triple fan configuration, we have a double fan arrangement which are 100mm in specification. Okay, so in terms of the pricing, you guys can pick this up here for $269 in the UK and $269 in the US as well. And so this card is kind of going to be in the same region as the 1060. The 580 will of course supersede the RX 480. And many of you guys will be wondering how this card here performs against the 1060, and later on we will be demonstrating this in a head-to-head comparison. Okay, and here is the Red Devil Golden Sample. Now, compared to what we've seen in the past from PowerColor and their Red Devil series, this 580 is actually quite a short looking card, and that is down to a redesign of the cooler, and that will certainly come in handy if you're a bit limited on the space. And so wrapped around that card we have a metal shroud, which rather than a triple fan arrangement, it has a double fan along with some aggressive styling. And you can tell by the route to which PowerColor has taken that there is a departure from ergonomics, and instead we have sharp edges. And later on we'll detach that cooler for a closer look at it. Now, unlike other partners, PowerColor has decided to tone down on that RGB lighting craze, and instead we have just a logo which lights up on the edge. And even if that is too much for some, there is a switch to disable it. So this card is quite a bit shorter than the Red Devil 480, but it is definitely much wider, and side by side there you can see the differences. And so we'll do a quick measurement now of this card, as this will let you guys know whether or not it will fit inside your computer chassis. And so for the length, Golden Sample is just over 240mm. For the width you're looking at around about 130, and then the height is 55mm. And so our 580 might well be a short card, but it is fairly wide. However, this certainly improves on the case compatibility. Now, since we have ourselves a custom card, Red Devil arrives with a factory overclock, and because this is a Golden Sample, this is the pinnacle of what PowerColor offer. And so the numbers here are above the standard Red Devil 580. And just like we've seen in the past, there are two modes available with Red Devil, Silent and Ultra OC. These modes here can be chosen using the small switch. And so with Silent we get a base clock of 1257, and that boosts to 1411 MHz. And with Ultra OC we get a clock which boosts to 1425 MHz. And the memory clock operates at 2000 with a bandwidth of 8 gigabits. So with Silent selected, this card will run in an efficiency mode using less power and less noise. And then with Ultra OC we get higher power limit, which unlocks that higher clock speed, adding in some extra voltage to achieve this. And the other things to note is that this card comes with 8GB of GDDR5, it is PCI Express 3.0 compliant, DirectX 12 ready, and it supports OpenGL 4.5. So Golden Sample will occupy 2.5 spaces on your board and case due to the height of that cooler. And on this back panel we have quite a selection of different ports to use. And so we have one dual link DVI giving you up to 3K, triple DisplayPort 1.4s, and those can give you up to 8K at 60Hz. And we also have one HDMI 2.0, and that offers 4K at 60Hz. And so either HDMI or DisplayPort are the best ones to go with there. DisplayPort obviously offering greater expandability. Now, AMD specify 500 watt for the power supply requirements for 580, but with our Golden Sample, there is a necessity there for 600 watt, and you will need a 6+8 pin connection. Now, over on the reverse of the card, we have a large metal backplate, which protects the PCB from getting scratched or from warping. And PowerColor has also marked out some ventilation there, so that the internal components can release any of the unwanted heat. Right guys, well the cooler is now removed from the Red Devil Golden Sample, and this is what we have. Firstly, there are two 100mm double ball bearing fans, and these will stop spinning if the GPU temperature drops below 60 degrees, and so you'll be able to enjoy silent operation. And those fans sit on top of this large heatsink, which has been designed to make use of 4 8mm and 1 6mm heat pipe, which are nickel plated. And so if you compare, this is higher in spec than what we had with the 480 Red Devil. Now, having detached the cooler, we can also have a look at the PCB. And so the board is a custom design and one which is armed with a 6-phase VRM which is digitally controlled. And at the heart of our 580 is AMD's Ellesmere using a 14nm process. Now, although we have the same makeup to the 480, this is a refined version and what we could really classify as Polaris Gen 2. And so it isn't quite that Vega that everyone has been waiting for. And as we mentioned earlier, PowerColor has applied a decent overclock to the AMD stock settings, so that should help bump up the performance. So next we'll enable that Ultra OC mode on the 580 and we'll put this card through its paces in some of the latest games. And so we're going to be using For Honor, Ghost Recon Wildlands, Battlefield 1, The Witcher 3 and Titanfall 2. And for each of these games we're going to be going with 1080p for the resolution and we'll use Ultra for the detail preset. And for comparison, we're going to put the 580 against Nvidia's GTX 1060 Founders Edition. For other benchmarks and resolutions, please head on over to the full review on Vortez.net. And while we check out these games, we're also going to have GPU-Z running in the background to pick up on the max GPU temperature and to see how effective that cooler really is. Okay, and while we're in game, we'll just get a reading of the noise levels coming from this card. The fan speed is around about 40%. Okay, and just coming out of Titanfall 2, let's quit the game for a look at that max GPU temperature to see how well that cooler did. And there is the result. Okay, well that completes our look at the Red Devil RX 580 Golden sample. So in that comparison that you've just seen there between this card and the 1060, there is a slight advantage in AMD's favour, giving up to 10 additional frames, sometimes a little bit more. It really depends on the title we're looking at. The stock 580 will be slightly faster than the RX 480 because it runs with faster clock speeds. And so it isn't worth the upgrade if you already have a 480, but if you have skipped that generation, then it is definitely worth a look. Now, as far as the design of this Red Devil Golden sample goes, the cooler is very efficient. The temperatures after prolonged periods of gaming will hit around 60 degrees, and it is very quiet. And so on the 480 Red Devil, PowerColor used a triple fan configuration with, I think it was 80mm fans, but with this redesign here, they use just 2 fans. They are larger in size, so they push more air and they emit less noise. The obvious benefit with this design here is that it's shorter and it's going to be able to fit into cases a lot easier. Just be mindful though that it is a 2.5 slots that it takes up. It's also good to see in this redesign that the logo this time is the right way around. Now, the factory overclock on this golden sample is just an additional 6% when we look at the figures against the stock settings. For a cherry-picked GPU and what PowerColor term their very best, that doesn't appear that much, but we're going to see how far we can push this card here in the full review. So guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out that full review, which is going to be on the screen and in the description very soon. Take care, and I will see you guys in the next one.